Hello there, welcome to Genessis Mods, welcome to another live session. Sorry for playing cameraman. But yeah, welcome to another live session, the 30-second live session, and tonight we are going to be touching on our A4 just here. This is been nicely, we pre-shaded it, we put a nice coat on it, we did some bleaching and stuff, and as you can see, looking pretty snazzy right now. Tonight we're going to be doing something called post shading. Post shading sort of goes a bit more advanced. When it comes to spraying, it's probably the most advanced, well, not exactly the most advanced thing, but it sort of gets you there, starting to turn your model into a much more sort of professional sort of look, and it can really sort of make a model look really sort of weathered, dirty, you know, on the front line kind of look. So that is what we're going to be tackling tonight. Got a bit of brush painting as well, because there's a few little bits that needs doing on here, so a nice couple of tips and tricks going on for that. Bit of latest news here at Genessis Models. We've got, what is it, I have just been working on and filming our Tempest today, so we've got some footage for that. Hopefully that'll be up next week. We're starting to actually spray and paint the cockpit and moving along with that. The FA-18, that has been all deckled up. I will be starting to do some more footage on that next week, and hopefully we'll get some stuff to do with weathering and stuff with that one, which being, you know, an aircraft carrier based aircraft, it's going to be nice and dirty. Even the Star Trek US Enterprise is coming along, sort of getting built, and hopefully we'll be doing a quick spray job on that and diving into the main feature of that series, which is going to be deckling, because these decals, they wrap all the way around, so we'll be tackling that one also. So let's dive into our A4. Again, sorry for playing cameraman. Oop, wrong way. There we go. And hold on, this is about to fall off. 1 second. Hold on, there we go. Okay, so here is our A4. Now, at this stage, a lot of you guys could go off and almost kind of, this is done spray-wise. When I first started modeling, pre-shading, putting your base coat down, and then going off and doing some bleaching, pretty much sort of, you know, sorts it out. I mean, you could, as you can see, it does look good. You could leave it at that. So if you're not overconfident with your airbrushing skills, you know, this would be just fine and look quite good, but it just adds another level by doing pre-shading. So sorry, not pre-shading, post-shading. So to get started is we need to sort of make up a mixture. So get in our original color, our light gold gray, which is 71121. That's by Vallejo Model A. We need to get our original color, but what we also need to do is keep things thinned down. So I'm going to add some homebrew thinners. Right, you know, a nice amount of homebrew thinners actually, because the whole thing about doing post shading is we want the paint to be nice and transparent. The more transparent it is, the more sort of it's just going to do a light darker edge to all our recessed panel lines and rivets. If we go too strong, you know, have too much coverage, we're just going to end up with these sort of grey dark lines, and they're going to be really sort of solid and in your face. We want something nice and transparent, which we're not going to majorly see, right? Just enough so it adds weathering. So let's just shake this up. By all means, get on the chat, ask any questions you want. Absolutely anything, frequently asked questions, what models you're working on, and all that kind of good stuff. So what we're going to do, all right, we'll pour in, well, we'll put a couple of drops in this. As I say, we want it transparent, right? So we're probably going somewhere in the regions of like something like 80% thinners to paint, so it's really going to be thinned down paint, as I say, so it's nice and transparent. Right, so we've just mixed in our base colour, and then kind of do this kind of stuff. 057 black Vallejo Model Air. Right, and we're just going to add, you know, a drop or two in here, and what we want to do is just plain and simply take our original colour and make it look a bit darker. Right, and now that is looking pretty sort of spot on straight away. A nice dark colour. Now because it's transparent, although that might seem like that's going to be a bit OTT, it's all about it being nice and transparent, right? Nice and thin down, right, so it's not going to be strong when we spray it down. Right, so what we're going to do now is I'll just quickly check any comments just on here. Got a question from Sundowner, just saying, are we adding just thinners and no flow improver? Flow improver, I mean, you could add a little bit if you wanted to. Sometimes, like if you're in a hot country and it's humid and stuff, it can help with it not sort of so it goes down on the model a little bit better, but you know, the temperature and conditions here, all right, so I'm using thinners. What you'll also notice as well, I have unmasked all of this, right, so we can see we've got all our white and everything, it's all unmasked. I've got personally no problem going off and having the same post shading for both colors. It kind of slightly blends them in a little bit, makes it a little bit easier, and I don't mind that. I know some people will probably leave the masking tape on and post shade the gray, and then maybe post shade the white and do them separately, but I'm you know, it's kind of up to you. That's a sort of a personal preference, but I'm going to do both. Now when it comes to this kind of stuff, what you really sort of need to do, really get your biting point. We really need to make sure that when we pull down the trigger, we're just getting that those little lines. All right, nice little lines. We've been pressing down the trigger, slowly pulling out, and then once we get that paint coming out, we've got our biting point. Our biting point, really, we're basically going along and holding our biting point as much as we can while we move along. Now what we also need to do is, because we're sort of like not got a standard color here which is straight out of the pot, we've mixed it, you do kind of want to make sure that, you know, the color's just right. So just take a little bit and sort of, let's just spray and see how it looks first. Right, so I'm trying to hold my biting point, and I'm going to do a bit, and then hopefully, as you can see there, we've just done a bit of post shading on that panel line. I'm looking at that, and the colour does look good. I mean, it's not too dark, it's not too in your face, and that is looking good. Right, so we can now do the rest of the model. I mean, we might want to check it out on the white as well, just to make sure we're good there. So again, just getting that biting point, and you basically want to just keep moving. Now I've just noticed maybe a little bit of starting of a spider in there, so my air pressure is potentially a little bit too high, so I'm going to knock that down. Probably coming to about 15 psi now. Right, because the paint is so much more thinner, right, we don't need as much air pressure to blow this out, right? So we don't need it, so don't have it, because if you have too much, you can end up having spider effects, right? That's basically where you press down the trigger, and hopefully, as you can see there, right, it spiders out, because the paint, we've made it nice and transparent, means nice and thin, but it means you can blow it out like a spider effect. So it's all about now sort of holding our biting point, and what I like to do is just keep on moving. Right, hold that biting point. I like to just keep moving. Right, if I end up going over the same area twice, oops, see what I mean about that spidering effect? So I'm just going to quickly get a cotton wool bud because I've just made a mistake. I could probably whack my air pressure down a little bit more. So cotton wool bud, I'm just going to try and wipe this up. Right, we should be able to wipe it up because, you know, the paint's still wet, so it should wipe up, you know, relatively nicely. But also know that the paint that we've got on here now is dry, so it should wipe away. Okay, so again, let's just, oh sorry, I've got to knock my air pressure down a little bit more. In my case, I'm coming down even more, you know, maybe like 13 psi, and hopefully we should have better control with this now. Now wherever you've got like flaps, ailerons, you can probably give these areas a little bit more. Maybe my air pressure went down a bit too much because that's I'm starting to notice it's a bit sort of spluttery, so I'm just getting a bit more air pressure. Yeah, no harm in changing your air pressure just to make sure you get your spray pattern just right, because, you know, it's one of these things you do need to make sure it's all spraying nice. Right, because we've done all this work so far, pre-shading and bleaching, you know, we don't want to mess it up, right? So we need to make sure everything is nice and working right. We've got these little circles here. I mean, if you've got the, you know, the experience to sort of make these circular patterns on here, they do look rather cool. As we mentioned in the previous videos, right, so if you can work on these, they do look nice. Just take your time. Now the thing is, what you're also going to remember is, I feel like I could do a bit more air pressure. Sometimes, you know, it does help just to blow a load out, clean the end of your nozzle, keep it nice and clean, right? Because the more you block it up, the more your spray pattern gets messed up. But as I say, you know, we are doing weathering here. Weathering isn't a uniform thing, right? It is random, right? So I'm just sort of like following my recessed panel lines. If I miss a panel line, do you know what? That's absolutely fine. If I go over a panel line more than once, that's fine too. It just means that some areas are just going to end up being randomly darker. Some areas are going to be randomly missed, right? And it's just all these little things can just add up to that nice bit of weathering. Right, so I'm just going to do a little bit more here. So again, feel free, get some comments in, and I'll do my best to answer any questions you guys have got. Just sort of giving all our ailerons and flaps that little bit of extra treatment. As I say, those areas, they do get sort of, they're moving parts, so they get worn a bit. Hopefully I'm sort of seeing now they start to sort of take shape. Yeah, it's starting to take this shape of looking more dirtier, more weathered, right, more used, like so. So that wing now is basically done, and hopefully you can sort of see the difference it sort of makes to the model. As I say, you know, this side looks good. You know, you could leave your model just at that. We've got some nice stuff going on there, but then, you know, this just adds another level of weathering to the whole mix, and it's quite popular for modelers to go off and do this kind of stuff. So basically, to recap, right, you want to just make sure everything is perfect. Basically, make sure you've got a nice good color that looks just nicely darker than the rest of the model. If you have to kind of just spray in an inconspicuous place just to test it out, that's absolutely fine. And it doesn't matter if you've got the color wrong as well, as long as you do that little bit of a test, you know, it's okay. Because the thing is with weathering, it's random. Colors can be darker or lighter, so if you didn't quite like the color when you first sprayed it on, right, that little bit there is going to be fine wherever you've sprayed it, because, you know, it's going to add a bit of flavor. You know, it's going to have one little patch that's maybe a bit too dark, right? So if you do a little bit of a test, don't worry too much, right? And the other thing is just to make sure that your airbrush is nicely set up for post shading. Make sure, you know, your paint is really nice and thin, nice and transparent. Make sure you've got your air pressure just right, so as, you know, it's not so high that it's making spider effects when you spray on your model. Because if you've got hairbrushes too high, the paint's thin, you know, if you stay in the same area too long, it's just going to spider off. So get your air pressure down as much as you can get it with this thin paint, where it's just spraying nicely, right? And that is pretty much it. And just keep on moving. Don't stay in the same place for too long, because you stay in the same place too long, the paint's going to get wetter and wetter and wetter, and then all of a sudden you're just going to blow it around like all spidering effects, right? Don't feel like you've got to be all uniform, right? Doesn't have to be perfect, you know. You don't have to be perfectly on the lines, right? You don't have to spray every bit the exact same color. If you miss a line, you know, it doesn't matter if you go over a line twice or 3 times and you make one really dark, absolutely fine, right? Because it's all random, it's weathering, right? We're not spraying on perfectly to make a perfect shape of all your recessed panel lines and all your recessed rivets. It's all just nice and random. Another thing we could do as well is we could really sort of give one area a really good scene to. So take this panel line here, right? I could really sort of build up a darker area, right? Just to sort of say that this area is really, you know, got really weathered. And as you can see, I've just sprayed that area. It's really sort of coming out at you. But as much as that might seem like it's coming out at you too much, it's just one little spot, one little area, and it just makes it kind of give it a bit more life. As I say, it keeps all your weathering random. So I do like to do the odd little spot, maybe one there, one over there, maybe 3 little spots where it's really sort of dark. I like doing that kind of stuff. It does look rather cool. Also, this is an aircraft carrier, so what we could do, although actually I think I'll save that for next week, because it is quite cool, and it's a bit of a process. But yeah, there's a nice little trick of doing some spraying, which I'll show you next week. Sorry to keep you in the dark, but yeah, going to take a bit to show you that, as well as changing colours in the colour cup and everything. Because after I've finish this live session, I need to go all over the same model with this same color, because we are live. I can't really sort of spend the whole session just spraying the whole model all round, because it's going to be a bit boring me doing the whole thing. But at the same time, I can't actually sort of, you know, pour this color away, because I'll end up having like half the model is going to be this color, and then I'm going to be faffing around trying to get this exact color again to do the other side. So I'm going to leave this in my color cup, right, while we're live, and then once I've finished live, I'll go around the rest of the model. So I'm just going to check any questions, answers you guys have got, and then we're going to do a bit of brush painting. If I can just find out where I put all my pieces. Here we go. Just check the comments. Okay, we got a question from Conrad here about with acrylics, when he's trying to do mottling and thinning them down, the paint separates. Now, if your paint's separating when you're mixing them, it means you're not using, say, the right thinners, right? So we've got all these different brands of paints. We've been using Vallejo, and we've been using the homebrew thinners, which, you know, there's a tutorial on that on the Genessis Models website. These thin nicely, but there are different brands of thinners out there, and some brands actually don't like to mix with certain brands of paint, some brands of thinners. If you're having that problem, basically you need to change your thinners and find out which thinners is going to work best, i.e. pretty much 9 times out of 10 homebrew thinners thins everything nicely, or use the manufacturer's thinners to thin your acrylic paint. So that's basically that answer. Well, that's for it for questions and answers, so let's move along, right? Because we've been spraying our model. There's a few little things I'm going to show you next week with that, just to touch up on, but then we've got all our little pieces, and we've got a little bit of like brush painting to do. So first off, we've got some wheels, right? Wheels can be a bit of a pain to do, because actually going off, getting out a paintbrush and trying to sort of paint a perfect circle all around here can be, for some people it can be absolutely fine. Some people maybe not got such a steady hand, so always a good trick to use if we get a sort of a clean something to put your paint on. You can use you can use tiles or palettes or anything you want to use. Then one thing we're going to get out is, where's it gone? This is where we get to use some flow improver, if I can find it. Yeah, here we go. Had a new pot last week. Flow improver, got some water on the side, and then some paint. Right, here we go. I do like to use AK rubber tyres, which is AK720. Nice colour for painting tyres. It's not a full-on black, it just looks nice and rubbery. Right, so don't assume going off and just using black is going to always be the best. There's loads of manufacturers out there now who do like a rubber tyre colour, because we do seem to like it. So we're going to pour a bit of this on our palette just here. Then we're going to get some water, so I'm just going to get a clean sort of mixing brush to start with. Right, I'm going to sort of thin this down, because when it comes to painting, it's always good to thin those paints. You want it to be pretty much the same as airbrushing really when thinning your paints. You want to thin it down enough so you've got good coverage, but you want to thin it down enough so it goes down nicely. If you've got it too thick, you're going to have brush strokes. If you've got it too thin, it's going to be too transparent. You're going to be doing about 20 coats. You want to get it just somewhere in between. Then we have our flow improver, which we do need to be careful with this stuff. Too much flow improver and it can sort of almost stop your paint from drying. So I'm just going to get my pipette, right, and I'm just going to put a bit of this over the opposite side of my painting palette just here, because I want to have the control of mixing it, right, because it's, I think the instructions say something like only 10% a flow improver to your mixture. Right. Oh, this flow improver, by the way, you can get pretty much any flow improver out there as long as it's for acrylics. I like to use Winsor & Newton, but there are other brands out there. And then what we're going to do is just get a bit of this flow improver and mixing. What we're going to get is a mixture that is going to do what it says on the tin. It's going to flow, right? It's going to improve the flow of our paint. So fingers crossed, while I'm live, this is going to be a good mixture, right? Because sometimes you have to play around with it, but hopefully I've got it right first time. So basically, hopefully I'm going to basically touch the edge. There you go. See how I just touched that edge, and straight away the flow improver has done the work for me. It's painted around that edge for me. So if I just get another little bit on my paintbrush, just touch the edge. Alright, so I'm not putting any hard work in trying to paint this and being all nice and careful and stuff. Nope, the paint is doing the work. Well, the flow improver is doing the work, and it's flowing all the way around. And actually I've touched that in these 3 places just at the top here, and it's actually flowed all the way around, as you can see there. And then, you know, because it's gone right up to the edge, it means I haven't got to go right up to the edge to paint this. I've only got to like paint the tyre then, and leave the flow improver going up into that corner there and doing all the painting for me. Right, now as you can see, it's not got very good coverage as I paint around it, right? But it's nicely gone into that recess. Is quite dark because it's kind of pulled up in those recesses because it's got that flow improver in there. So once that's dry, we can then come along with just some normal painting of just water and paint, and just paint around the edges just to get that all nice and good. And we should end up with a really cool painted up tyre that looks like you've either sprayed it on, or you're really sort of good with your painting and you can paint circles really well, but actually really flow improver has done the job for you. So I'll continue with that off camera just to speed things up. Just need to clean my paintbrush now. Alright, so I'm just dipping it in some water and I'm just cleaning it off just here. Right, whenever I clean it, I'm not sort of like pushing that way, so I'll bend the bristles back on itself, like bend them back like that. I'm just dragging it this way, so we always keep our bristles in a nice pointy fashion. Clean that up a bit more in a sec. Right then, any more questions on the chat? No more questions, no worries. So next up we have these. We're going to be painting up our what we've got here. We've got to paint up these red sort of trims along here. So I'm going to get out a nice colour I like to use. Nice red. It's Evil Sun's Scarlet. This is by Games Workshop, Citadel Paints. I do like to use their paints when it comes to using a brush, because I do find that, well, let's face it, these are designed to be brush painted paints, and stuff like Vallejo and the AK stuff here is more designed to go through the airbrush, whereas these are really sort of, they are designed to get out your paintbrush. Right, so I do like to use them because they just seem to go on nicer, they seem to mix nicer, and all that cool stuff. So again, we could get out our little palette, and all I'm going to do is get a nice bit of a blob here. Trying to find a clean part of my palette if I can. Right, push that on there, get a little bit of water which is just off camera. Right, and we just want to mix it, so again, you know, it's not that thick that when we paint it down it paints all, you know, we can see the brush strokes. right? But we don't want it too thin that we end up doing about 20 coats. So as you can see, I'm sort of spinning my paintbrush and painting across the palette just in. What this is doing is you don't want to have too much paint on your brush, because if you have a plus it keeps your bristles all nice and pointy. Now what we're going to do is we just need to paint in here. So I'm just going to, where we need to paint, I'm not going to sort of play with it or tickle it or anything like that. I'm just going to try and go along in sort of almost like one stroke like that, which I find is going to be a good way of sort of getting this to be and not a straight line. Right. If you try and tickle, and if you know what I mean, where you sort of like, you know, sort of paint a bit, paint a bit, paint a bit, going across, going across, going across, it, I don't know, you don't seem to be able to get a nice-ish straight line. Right. You can also use maybe the side of the paintbrush as well. Right, and you generally can get a nice straight line when you use the side of your paintbrush, because if you've got something, you know, like a nice sharp edge, it normally does give you a straight line when you use the side of the paintbrush, but that depends on the area itself. We've also got to go up against this edge here. See, it sort of wraps round as a nice sort of straight edge. So this is where using the side of the paintbrush is going to be absolutely lovely. Right, but there's a couple of tips to get this just sort of right. Let's just say, whoops, I slipped. We don't like that. Now, what I can do is I can get out a cotton wool bud, lick it, dip it in some water, nice and moist. And what we can do is just wipe this away. Now as you're wiping, don't go like this, right, because you've transferred the red onto the cotton wool bud, but it sort of smudges it in. As you can see, it's maybe, I don't know if you can see that, but it smudges the red in there. So you want to sort of turn your cotton wool bud as you're doing it, so you're not sort of smudging it in, you're actually wiping it up. Alright, so turn that cotton wool bud, make sure it's on like a clean side as you're brushing across, and you shouldn't get any smudges. Now there is a little bit more to this that I haven't revealed yet. How is that sort of clean that paint up basically so nicely? Now what I've already done with all these pieces off camera is we've painted them, but I've sealed them in with a gloss coat. So in here I've got floor pledge, floor multi-wax surface cleaner. I'll just get out the pot because yeah, this is just basically, it's a gloss paint, but I know it's multi-surface wax cleaner. If you haven't heard about it, Genessis Models website, big post on the forum there if you go search for it. Basically it's a floor cleaner, but if you spray it through an airbrush, it acts as like a gloss paint on models. And trust me, modelers all around the world, professional, whatever, they use this stuff. They absolutely love it. It's really does the job perfectly, and it is mega cheap. So basically we sprayed a gloss coat on this, and this is getting all these pieces ready for decaling and all that kind of cool stuff, but it has this added effect of what we're doing here is we've got gloss down on here. Gloss is all nice and smooth, so if we paint on top of gloss and we wipe it away, it's like, it's almost like wiping some sort of dirt off a kitchen surface. You know, your kitchen surfaces are all nice and smooth and sort of glossy. You can just wipe up whatever crap that's on there and it comes up nice and clean. The same sort of effect with this, because we've just painted this red paint on. It's just gone down and we've pretty much immediately afterwards wiped away that red paint. and that red paint hasn't had time to dry and cure. I mean, if we left this till tomorrow with a mistake on it, that red paint would have had time to dry and cure, and it probably might be a little bit more tricky to wipe up. So we've got the two advantages of, one, we've got dried and cured gloss paint on here, which leaves a nice smooth surface, and then our red paint, which was the mistake, hadn't properly dried yet, so it allows us to wipe that kind of stuff up quite easily. So if you're ever doing any kind of things like this where, you know, you've got this really sort of, you know, difficult paint area to paint stuff up, well, you know what, just do some prep work beforehand. Just go off and spray up with some gloss paint. So basically you are saving your work, so any mistakes that you do make, you can clean up. Right, and you can clean them up easier if you clean them up straight away and don't let it dry. Right, so gloss coats, always a good one to have. Right, so I think I'm just going to leave you at that. Also, you know, the side of your brush, whenever you can use the side of the brush nice and gently, running it along, really does give you some nice straight lines, which using the side of your brush is going to be your friend for a task like this, because I've been using the side of the brush, you know, and we haven't really got any mistakes on this side, and it's sort of going nice and straight over here as well. Right, if you have areas where you can't use your side of your brush or something, try and just make sure you brush it in a nice, try and do it in one sort of go, nice and a nice fluid straight motion. Tickling that is probably going to leave you with not a straight edge. I mean, you could always, if you've got a tricky area, mask it up, maybe spray it, but that's totally up to you if you want to spend that kind of time doing it to all these little pieces. Right, so that is that for that painting, and pretty much as far as this model goes now, I think that is pretty much it. I mean, I've got to do all my post shading off camera, paint all these bits up like I've just shown you. There is some more advanced spraying I want to sort of touch on next week with this, and then we'll probably seal it in with a gloss coat, and off the top of my head, we might be just jumping into some decking maybe, or whatever I can find for next week. But I want to do a bit more advanced sort of stuff with the spraying, as I say, next week. Now we've just used our paint brushes, and just to sort of let you know, what I've got here is Winsor & Newton Series 7. Series 7 by Winsor & Newton is pretty much, you know, a lot of people say they're pretty much the best paint brushes you can get in the world. Everybody loves them. Ask anyone who paints any kind of models or miniatures with a paintbrush, and they absolutely love the Series 7. I've got quite a few of these, and the thing is as well is they are expensive. Now what you want to do is you do want to take care of these brushes. So I've mainly cleaned it in a pot of water, which I'm just shaking it in there, and then I'm just, as I've shown you before, clean it on a kitchen paper towel. Alright, until we've got, like, you know, pretty much most of the red not coming off. Then we want to take care of these. So some sort of brush cleaner and preserver. This is the Masters. You know, they're really good. I've found no problems with them, but there are other brands out there. But basically a brush cleaner and preserver is what you are after. This stuff's pretty cool to use. Just dip your paintbrush into some water, and then you want to sort of nicely clean it in here. Again, remember not to bend those bristles back. Right, start bending those bristles back, you start losing the shape of your brush. Right, so as you're cleaning it, you kind of want to be not doing that. Right, I think as you, I don't know if you can see here, I'm just sort of like moving it around. It is bending a bit, but I'm not pushing right down and doing stuff like that. I'm just trying to just keep it nice. Maybe a little bit more water. And hopefully, as you can see, is we're getting all this red paint actually coming off this. Although we just sort of cleaned it on a kitchen paper towel and stuff, it does nicely really get down and clean off all this red paint. Right, so as you can see, I'm always not bending it, I'm going with the point. Right, I'm just cleaning it off nicely. And what this stuff does, it actually gets not just the bristles, but it goes down the shaft as well and cleans in there, because it's what dries in this shaft area that basically ends up messing up your paintbrushes. Alright, so I'm just gonna clean off that, because I mean that had, you know, still quite a bit of red paint in there. Could probably clean our tub as well just quickly, and then, you know, give it another clean. And if you're still seeing red paint as you're sort of cleaning it, then you need to do it again and again. Right, but hopefully you can sort of see this is looking sort of nice and white just here, which kind of means it's all sort of nice and clean. Right, and then what I like to do is, once I see that this soap's all nice and white, I won't sort of wash this soapy stuff out. I'll leave it in there, so it kind of, what it does, it dries in there, and it's like a conditioning, like a hair conditioner, and it sort of conditions the bristles and keeps them all nice and new. And then I use my lips just to point the end, and what will happen is, when that dries, this stuff is, you know, been mixed in there, and I've left it in there, I've not washed it out with water or anything. It'll dry, and it'll sort of make the bristles a little bit hard, which kind of leaves it in that nice hard pointy shape. Right, just like, do you know, if you've ever had a brand new brush and you sort of, let's see if I can find one, you know, if you ever had a brand new brush come in and you sort of like, you know, first ever use it, it's not like the bristles are like all kind of, you know, everywhere and sort of all this kind of stuff. It's actually really sort of kind of hard. That's the way it sort of dries, so it dries to that nice point. And then, you know, if I sort of like press down on this, you know, it loses its shape a bit, and then it's not all hard again. So that's what it does by sort of leaving a bit of this preserver on there. It'll dry sort of nice and hard and keep a nice point, so then it lasts a lot longer, which which is what I like about this stuff. Because actually, oh man, I've had Winsor & Newton Series 7s for years. I've used oils, lacquer paints, enamel paints. I always clean them with this stuff afterwards, and they've lasted years. I think the last one I had lasted maybe 5 or 6 years, and then I replaced it. So, you know, they do last a long time if you do look after them, and don't forget to put your little lid thingy on there. So if there's no more questions and answers, which it doesn't look like there is, sadly we've come to the end. So we will be back again next week, Friday at 6 o'clock. Again, we're going to be doing some nice advanced sort of spraying. Hopefully you'll be liking that, and whatever else I can think of to do. Also, what have we got as well? We do have a competition, which is for an F16i Sufa. If you go see the Genesis models show for August, it's in like the vlogs on YouTube, or you can go watch it on the Genesis models website. You will see, you know, we've got that competition for this month. So if you want to be in it to win the F16i Sufa 148 scale by Kinetic model kits, go check out that video and you'll be able to find out how to enter that. And it is a free giveaway, so why not just get entered in on it. But apart from that, sadly we have come to the end of our live session just here. So yeah, until next week at the usual time of 6 o'clock next Friday, my name is Bob Waldron, this is Genesis Models, and I'll see you next time.